Alright, I am back, and I'm sure you guys have tons of questions. Moon, where have you been? It's been more than a month. Why is your hair brown? Do you have a Patreon? And the answer to all of your questions is yes. The link is in the description below. Okay, but let me be real with you. The last month, I have struggled so hard with writing this script. Actually, it's not even been a month. I've been working on this script since before the last 2 videos I just published. And man, was it a struggle. But we're here now, 2 years of research, 2 months of script writing, and I hope I have something cohesive to tell you. But I did write this while I had the flu, so this could just come across as mad ramblings. Hopefully you enjoy either way. In my opinion, I don't think a hard magic has anything to do with how many rules or limitations you add to your magic system. This is actually a pretty big topic, so I'm going to divide this into 2 separate videos. Part 1, the one you're watching right now, is going to be about hard magic. Part 2 is going to dive into soft magic and how it works. That video is actually already pre-released on my Patreon. If you guys want to go over there and check it out, I would love for you guys to watch it before I release it to the public. And just let me know what you think about it, what needs to change, so on. And if you like this kind of content, make sure to hit like. And if you hate me, make sure to hit subscribe. So what is a hard magic? There's been a billion answers to this question across YouTube. And though I love all of their videos, I think some of them are missing kind of the point. This has been the hardest topic so far to wrap my mind around and just put into words. But I think over time, we've kind of changed the meaning of hard and soft magic, both how Sanderson first coined it and how it's supposed to be used in practice. In case you don't know the terms hard and soft magic, the easy definitions and the ones that people always seem to go to is that a hard magic has lots of rules that the audience understands, and a soft magic has no rules. I'm not saying that these definitions don't hold some truth. And honestly, it's fine for the average reader. It helps you distinguish what kind of magic systems you like to watch. It makes conversations about fantasy easier. But from an author's perspective, it's not exactly that simple. Brandon Sanderson was the author who coined the terms in the first place, and he did so to help categorize the 2 different emotions magic tends to make us feel. On one side, the soft side, magic is more wondrous. We don't know how it works, but when it's used, we're left in awe. We as the audience think, wow, that was amazing. One of the best examples for this is Dumbledore. When he shows up to solve a problem, we have no idea what he's going to do or even how he does it, but it's always something spectacular, something that leaves us in awe. On the other side, we have hard magic. Now, this one's a bit harder to explain the emotions it creates. The English language just does not have enough words. But do you know that feeling that you get when you've tried really hard at something and you finally accomplish your goals? Or maybe you've been studying something in school and suddenly everything clicks and it all makes sense. Or just the desire to want to understand something. This is the kind of feelings that hard magic creates in us. It gives us that feeling of being proud, of being accomplished. But not just for ourselves, but for the characters that we're watching. When heroes use a hard magic to accomplish a problem or a trial, we feel proud of them for accomplishing something through their hard work and effort. It leaves us saying, oh, that was a clever way to use that magic. So basically, the easy way of remembering it is hard versus soft is proud versus wowed, achievement versus amazement, satisfied versus spectacular. You can see hard magic being used in stories like My Hero Academia, Spider-Man, Mistborn, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and yes, even Harry Potter uses hard magic sometimes. It's just about creating that feeling of accomplishment, solving problems in creative ways, using rules we the audience understand. A great example of this is from an anime called A Certain Scientific Railgun. There's a character who has the ability to teleport herself or anything she touches to any location. The magic itself doesn't have many limits, but the unique ways the character uses her magic is so interesting. There's this one episode where she uses her magic to teleport the glass from windows into the support beams of a building, causing the whole thing to fall down. This was a way I've never seen teleportation magic used before, and this scene made me go, wow, that's a cool way to use that magic. Something that's important to realize is that a magic system can have both hard and soft elements. Even Brandon Sanderson uses Lord of the Rings as an example, saying that Gandalf's magic is soft because we have no idea what he can do, but the ring's magic is hard. having rules and consequences that Frodo uses to solve problems. I personally like looking at Harry Potter because Dumbledore and Harry essentially use the same exact magic. But when Dumbledore uses it, we have no idea what he's going to do, and we're left in awe. But when Harry uses it, it usually has specific rules and limits that Harry has to abide by. It leaves us feeling proud of Harry when he's accomplished something. For example, Harry and Hermione use the Time Turner to free Buckbeak. The story explains to us how the magic of the Time Turner works, that time is linear. When Hermione sees the same rock that broke the vase in the past, she realizes she was the one who threw the rock and that she needed to do it again. This was something we, the audience, could have guessed ourselves because we understood the magic. And because Hermione figured this out, we feel proud of her. I'm not gonna sit here and act like Harry Potter is full of hard magic because realistically it's not. And if I was to categorize the entire series, it definitely would fall on the softer end of the spectrum. But it is good to acknowledge when hard magic is being used and how it's being used. Just looking at these two stories, you can see that hard magic is usually given to the main character. I think this is because hard magic relies on your audience enjoying learning about the magic. But if your hero doesn't enjoy learning about the magic, or if they don't have the magic at all, then how do you expect your audience to enjoy it? Also, if you're taking time to establish the rules and the limits to your magic, but in the end your hero doesn't use any of those rules and limits to solve problems, your audience is going to feel like you just wasted all their time. Okay, so now you understand what a hard magic system is, but how do you create it? The foundation to building a hard magic system is predictability. Hard magic doesn't have to be based in science or realism. It just has to be reliable and have repeatable outcomes. Your audience needs to understand how your magic works before they can appreciate how your hero can use it. This is tied directly to Sanderson's first law. I have a video that actually explains this in a lot more detail. If you want to check it out later, the link is in the description. But put simply, Sanderson's first law states, an author's ability to solve problems with magic in a satisfying way is equally proportional to how well the reader understands said magic. If you want your audience to feel that sense of accomplishment for your hero when they solve a problem with their magic, they and the hero need to understand how that magic works. In order to do this, you need to create rules and limits to your magic, which is why so many people categorize hard magic as a magic with lots of rules. The reason I personally don't like this description is because people tend to relate how hard a magic is based on how many rules and limitations it has. And this simply just isn't the case. Hard magic is actually more based on how you use those rules to solve problems in your story. Let's look at 3 different examples. The first 2 actually accomplish the same thing, just in different ways. In Arcane Ascension by Andrew Rowe, a person's magic has very strict rules and limits. You receive 1 attunement that allows you to do only what it's programmed to do, and it uses actual numbers to show a character's mana supply and how much they can use before they damage their body. The hero of this story has to work around all these limits in order to solve problems in the story. Meanwhile, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, a bender can only bend 1 element, but it's never said how much of that element a bender can bend, or for even how long before they get tired. If a hard magic was strictly based on how many rules you had, you would say Arcane Ascension is a harder magic than Avatar, but they're both actually equally as hard. Arcane Ascension uses all the limits that they have in place to cause problems for the hero to overcome. Now, even though Avatar: The Last Airbender doesn't have as many limits as Arcane Ascension, the problem solving doesn't focus on that. They don't focus on how much water Katara can bend or how long until she gets tired. What they do focus on is the limitations of using only 1 element. What happens when you trap an earthbender in a metal box? What does a waterbender do when they have no water? When you sit down to create the rules to your magic, make sure you're keeping in mind how you're going to solve and cause problems with the rules you have set in place. Now, the third example is something that I think does this poorly. This is Full Metal Alchemist. Yes, I know, everyone loves it. I love it too. It's a great story. But I think it falters in this area a little bit. I don't think it's a hard magic. I think it's pretending to be a hard magic. The show lays out these rules for us.
It is impossible to create something out of nothing. If one wishes to obtain something, something of equal value must be given. This is the law of equivalent exchange.
We also learn that in order to use the magic, you need a transmutation circle. These are things I would assume makes this a hard magic story. But then in the first episode, we find out that people can just permanently tattoo the transmutation circle onto their skin, or have it on their clothes. And suddenly, they can just do whatever and create whatever they want as long as they have the material. The characters are never put into situations where this is a problem. Our main character doesn't even need a transmutation circle because he's special. On top of that, the magic claims to be this rule of equivalent exchange, yet where does the energy come from? You can't just create an entire wall out of rock from the ground and not expect the universe or the magic wielder to give forth that energy. This would have been a really cool cost to the story. And the only cost that it really seems to have is that you're not allowed to create a human being. And this in itself is still a soft magic. We don't know what happens when you try to create a human. And when the brothers actually do break the rules, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it's very soft magic here. It's very unpredictable. The story isn't bad. The story is actually really great, and that's because it focuses more on inner struggles and morals. And this is what a soft magic usually does. And so I really feel like this story is more of a soft magic when it comes to fixing all their problems. But setting up in the beginning that this magic has lots of rules and limits, but then never using those rules and limits to cause problems for our heroes, just kind of leaves me a little bit unsatisfied. I feel like I've been gypped. Back to predictability. Obviously, your magic can't start predictable. You have to create predictability by showing your hero use that magic over and over and having the same outcomes. It's even good to kind of show some of the limits to the person's magic. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, we're never told how much water Katara can bend, but we see her moving water so often that we kind of subconsciously understand her own limits. We don't expect Katara to move an entire ocean, and if she did, we would be left in awe. This is why we're shown in the first few episodes that Katara can turn water to ice. See, this isn't something that's necessarily predictable. Yes, she can move water, but why can she change the temperature of water? Adding it to the first few episodes makes us understand, oh, this is just a part of the magic. But if you were to wait an entire season and then just have her turn water to ice like it was nothing, we would be left kind of confused. Like, where did that come from? She's never made ice before. So always make sure that your audience understands the basics of your magic at the beginning of your story. But predictability is kind of like the awkward potion in Minecraft. You need it to create any potion, but on its own is completely useless. To really create that sense of achievement, of being proud of your hero, you need one or more of these three elements: critical thinking, foreshadowing, and payoff. Critical thinking. We've actually already talked about this one already. This is when your hero uses their magic in a strategic way, like teleporting glass out of a window into a support beam. My favorite example of this is from Avatar Season 3, Episode 7. Katara is trapped in this cage, cut off from any water, and has no way out. But then she realizes that she can bend the water in her own sweat, and then she cuts her way through the bars. It's so satisfying to watch, and I'm genuinely proud of Katara for realizing this. To create that moment of critical thinking, you as the writer need to sit down and decide all the weird, unique things that your magic can do. If your magic wielder can move water, can they move the water in plants, move the water in people? And does it even stop at water? Can they move any liquid if they try hard enough? The tricky part is not putting all of this in your story at once. Show the basics of what your magic can do at the beginning of your story, water bending, ice bending, things like that. And then as you get into the more unique, advanced stuff, save those for the problem-solving moments, like Katara moving the water in her sweat or in her blood. But why is critical thinking so important? Well, imagine you have a wizard who can create fire by controlling the vibrations of molecules. You then trap that wizard with handcuffs made of ice. You now have an easy, predictable solution. Melt the handcuffs. This is fine. This is perfect actually for those beginning scenes when you want to show off the basics of your magic. But it doesn't give us that satisfying feeling that our hero accomplished something. But let's take the very same wizard and put him on an island surrounded by water. Now he's trapped with no way off. But then he realizes that his power is just to make molecules move. So what if he can slow them down? So he touches his hand to the ocean, slows down the molecules, and makes an ice bridge off his island. Now this is something that we can look at and say, wow, that was a clever way for him to use his magic. One is an easy, predictable solution, while the other is a predictable solution that takes a little bit more thinking to figure out. Another way to have a satisfying hard magic solution is foreshadowing. This is when you hint at something early on in the story, and then the character uses that to either solve a problem or defeat a villain in the end. Going back to the fire wizard, if I as the author didn't establish that he heats things up by moving the molecules, then freezing the ocean would have come out of nowhere. Why can he freeze an ocean if he can create fire? And this would have left my audience dissatisfied with this answer. I'm gonna try to say this without spoilers. In Mistborn, our hero Vin uses a brand new power to defeat a villain at the end of the book. This isn't necessarily a bad scene, mostly because as a reader, I knew there were 2 more books, and I thought this scene was a hint at a power she will learn more about later. And in fact, she does, which actually makes this scene in itself really good foreshadowing for later. It was a fine ending, but it would have been terrible if this was the last book in the series. But that scene doesn't really leave me satisfied with what my hero did. And this emotion could have been achieved if it was just hinted at throughout the story that her powers worked a little bit differently than everyone else's. The rest of the series actually does hard magic really well, so if you haven't read it and you like hard magic, I would suggest to put that on your reading list. Foreshadowing is actually pretty easy to do. You can finish your whole story and then just go back throughout your book and add in some scenes that foreshadows what your hero does. It's all about leaving small hints that your readers don't really get right away, but then all connect in the end. Say that you have a necklace that keeps your hero from using a special power, and you want to keep this hidden for that satisfying reveal in the end. Well, you can have 1 or 2 scenes throughout your story where your hero doesn't have their necklace on for a logical reason, and then kind of taps into that hidden magic. Not too much, but just enough to get your hero and your audience questioning what they did. And if you want to go even further, derail your audience's attention from the necklace entirely. I've always loved foreshadowing and critical thinking in stories, because if it's done right, I find myself as the reader always trying to figure out how the hero is going to use that magic to solve a problem. And if I'm right, I feel really smart. And if I get it wrong, then I'm still left with that satisfying feeling of everything clicking together. It's kind of like watching a mystery. We all like being detectives and trying to figure it out ourselves. We all like feeling smart. And the great thing about hard magic is that it can create those feelings for us. Lastly, we have Payoff. This one's all about earning your scenes. When we watched our heroes struggle over and over, and then by the end of the story become masters, we feel so proud of them. To do this, you need to first show where your hero is at with their magic at the beginning of the story. And then through the course of time, show them training, learning new tricks, failing, but getting back up again. Timing is very important here because you can't just have a 1-chapter montage and then by the next chapter have that hero be an expert. And you can, but it doesn't achieve the same feeling. See, when people use montages, it's mainly to show, look, this is why my hero is great at what they're going to do. But the story isn't about watching them get great. For example, let's look at Peter Parker Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man from Spider-Verse. So Peter Parker, in almost every Spider-Man movie, gets bit by a spider, has a quick training montage, and then is instantly a really good hero. And it doesn't help that he also has spider sense, so he's just naturally really good at fighting. But the point of that story isn't to watch him become an excellent fighter. The point of those stories is to have a hero who's already a superhero facing a really bad villain. Miles Morales' story takes a different turn. He's never just instantly a good hero until the end of the movie. We see him struggling with web slinging, struggling to beat up bad guys, he's failing over and over, but he's getting back up again and trying again. And that makes the ending scene, when he does become a really good hero, that much more satisfying. We watched Miles grow into that. And that's another thing I love about hard magic systems, is I love watching heroes grow and struggle and become masters at their craft. Let's go back to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Katara is a perfect example of this, because in the first episode, we see her struggling with waterbending. She can barely hold a bubble with a fish in it. But over the course of time, we see her training. We see her learning new tricks. We see her failing, but using that failure to learn more. By the end of season 1, she's facing a full-blown waterbender master, and she's holding her own. In this scene, there's no foreshadowing. Katara doesn't use her magic in some unique way like I talked about with critical thinking, but we're still satisfied because she accomplished something through her hard work and effort. To see all that progress that's been made is just a really good payoff. I'm gonna say something, and believe me, it hurts me as much as it hurts you. But Avatar: The Last Airbender's ending wasn't perfect. I know, I should remove myself from booktube right now. I'm so sorry. But it's kind of true though. So let's talk about it. Spoilers if you haven't seen the series yet. Over the course of the entire series, Aang has been told he needs to master the 4 elements to defeat the Fire Lord and save the world from destruction. We get to the end of the series, the final battle, and you know what happens? Aang runs away pretty much the whole time until, oopsie, He hits his back in the perfect spot and suddenly has his avatar state back after being told it was gone permanently, and then he uses an ability that we didn't even know about until just the episode before. And the lion turtle barely classifies as foreshadowing since it happened so close to the ending. After all that time watching Aang master the elements and sacrifice his avatar state for love, it just felt like there should have been a better payoff. Was all that time in the last 3 seasons just wasted? This whole time, could he have just walked up to the lion turtle, learned this special ability, and then go defeat Ozai in his house? The ending scene of Avatar, I believe, could have been fixed by adding one of these elements. You could have foreshadowed throughout the last season this new form of bending that he has to use to take away Ozai's powers. You could have had Aang practice in the ways of the Avatar state and then come to the realization on his own that he could bend people's spirits to give us that critical thinking element. You could have had him actually use what he learned in the past 3 seasons for a good payoff. And when all of that failed, you could have at least had Aang come to some kind of inner realization that brought his Avatar state back. This would have been a soft magic solution, but this still would have been way more satisfying than what we were given. You know? I never thought I would rant about Avatar. What has this channel done to me? Avatar is still my favorite show, and honestly one of the hardest magic systems I've ever seen when you look at how many times characters use their magic to solve problems in satisfying ways. But I hope you can see now that hard magic isn't based on how many rules you give your magic system. It is completely dependent on how your characters use those rules to solve problems and what emotions you want your audience to feel. Just remember that the difference between a hard and soft magic is proud versus wowed, achievement versus amazement. I hope this has helped you in some way. I think it's actually helped me more than anything. I was struggling with the whole concept of hard magic systems, and so I sat down and I did a lot of research, and I really feel like I learned a whole lot. But like I always say, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. So tell me what you guys think. I want to hear from you. What's your favorite hard magic system? Why do you love it? I can tell you that my favorite hard magic systems are Avatar and Mistborn. Fantastic stories. If you don't agree with how I look at hard magic systems and you have a completely different way, let me know in the comments. I love seeing all your comments and your ideas about magic systems. I think it's just so interesting to see everyone's perspective on it. And I think that wraps this up. Remember to like and subscribe and head over to my Patreon page if you guys are interested. Thank you guys so much for the support already. You guys are awesome. I will see you guys in the next video, and bye.